Today, we are tackling an unfolding controversy. Consumer Reports recently released its latest findings after testing more than 20 popular hair dyes. So they found out that these hair dyes actually have a problematic ingredient. Their report has sent shockwaves through the beauty world. Welcome back to Unraveling the Knots, your go-to podcast for textured hair matters. I'm your host, Ganiyat. I love natural hair and natural hair loves me. I'm a project manager and owner of the hair care brand Aidara. I want to take a moment to appreciate our returning listeners. Yes, you guys. You just make me smile. Thanks for always tuning in. You guys are truly amazing. If you're new here, a big shout out to you too. I'm always so happy when people discover Unraveling the Knots. You see, I am super proud of the work we are doing and how far we have come. Reality is, rocking and growing your natural hair can feel like a struggle, and it doesn't have to be. Our platform is dedicated to sharing resources to make your hair journey less complicated. So, I encourage you to check out our past episodes. Over 80 and counting, guys. And you're bound to find 1 or 2 or 3 episodes that you'd absolutely love and connect with. And when you're done, get in touch with us. Send an email to utkinhair@gmail.com. On Instagram, DM us at utkpodcasts. If you're wondering what Consumer Reports is, I don't know if you remember last year, there was all this talk about this organization that was sharing information about braided hair having toxic chemicals. Yes, it's those guys. It's them. So what do? Consumer Reports is an independent non-profit organization that works to create a fairer, safer, and healthier marketplace. Coming back to their latest findings with hair dyes, it implicates industry giants like L'Oreal in the scandal involving a likely carcinogen. A carcinogen is anything that can cause cancer. We're going to look into the changing trends in how people are actually buying hair color and the massive gap in how the US government protects people when it comes to regulating cosmetic products. For more context, earlier this year, Consumer Reports conducted a rigorous lab investigation. They tested more than 20 hair dyes and 30 braiding hair samples, but we're not going to dive into the whole braiding hair because that has been flogged throughout last year. They were looking for what we call volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and heavy metals. The findings were truly a wake-up call. So Consumer Reports discovered that L'Oreal, I don't think there's anyone in the US that doesn't know L'Oreal. L'Oreal, the leading cosmetics brand in the US, manufactures and sells a dye that contains the highest levels of methylene chloride in this study. Other major brands like Revlon, Color Silk were also implicated, by the way, so it wasn't just L'Oreal. And this appears not to be a case where you have small amounts of methylene chloride found in a single batch of products. It's actually a widespread problem in the industry. The report also proved that even products that are marketed as safe were releasing dangerous chemicals into people's homes. So I understand if you're thinking, Ganya, what's the big deal? It's just, a hair dye, a small box. The primary concern in this report is actually that methylene chloride, which is also known as dichloromethane, it is a powerful solvent. When you go into the world of manufacturing, methylene chloride is used as a paint remover and a cleaning agent for metal surfaces, not human beings or animals. It's used for metals, right? So, methylene chloride is great at what it does. It is very effective at dissolving things. So now, why should you be concerned? Well, the health risks of methylene chloride are well documented. This organization called the International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies it as a likely carcinogen for human beings. In several animal studies, it's caused cancer in the lungs and liver. When you inhale this chemical, your body actually converts it into carbon monoxide. This leads to dizziness and headaches. If you're not a science student, carbon monoxide is poisonous to us. The danger is that methylene chloride is a volatile organic compound. Yes, it says that it's an organic compound, but please, organic in this case doesn't mean something mild or safe. It turns into gas at room temperature. If you're coloring your hair in a small bathroom, you're actually creating a concentrated cloud of a possible carcinogen. In the past, a lot of research that were done on methylene chloride focused on industrial workers who used masks. But current research is actually showing that everyday people are breathing in this compound during every 30-minute processing window when they're trying to have their hair colored. And I feel like what's really interesting is that there's this shift towards trying to use more safe products or just being safer in general. This controversy is happening during a massive shift in how we buy hair products. Think about it. This year, the hair color market is actually valued at nearly $30 billion. However, the growth is not in the traditional permanent dyes. People, especially those aged 18 to 34, are actually prioritizing two things: flexibility and safety. There is also a 60% increase in the demand for temporary and semi-permanent dye solutions. People want to experiment, no doubt, but without the permanent commitment of harsh chemicals. We're also seeing a clean label revolution. We have people actively seeking out ammonia-free and VOC-free formulations. As I said before, VOC is volatile organic compounds. People are no longer willing to trade their long-term health for a short-term aesthetic change. And now, how has L'Oreal handled the situation? Well, L'Oreal has responded to the controversy by emphasizing their safety protocols or their safety processes. In public statements, they've claimed that their products undergo rigorous scientific evaluation. You know the usual now, when a company is called out, they have to do PR. They also argue that they follow all current regulations in every market which they operate, and I believe that's true. At the same time, the pressure from consumer reports and legislative petitions is forcing L'Oreal's hands. The company is now exploring reformulations to remove methylene chloride from their US-based product lines. You heard that, their US-based product lines, and I will dive into why that's very important later. And honestly, as I've read about this whole situation, it actually feels like L'Oreal is being more reactive rather than taking a more proactive approach to addressing this issue. They've also decided that they would start investing more in plant-based research to compete with the rising clean beauty brands. The resolution for L'Oreal appears to be a mix of public relations defense and a slow transition towards the safe standards already required in other parts of the world, especially Europe. So the purpose of this episode is not to point fingers solely at L'Oreal. I feel like it's easy to say L'Oreal is not being responsible, or they're not thinking about their customers in certain countries, they're not prioritizing their well-being. But you can't blame L'Oreal without looking at the environment that has facilitated their ability to release a product with problematic ingredients, right, in the US. One of the most frustrating parts of this whole situation for me is the difference in protection based on where you live. If you buy a hair dye in the European Union, you are protected by what is called the Scientific Committee on Consumer Safety. The EU apparently has banned nearly 1,700 toxic chemicals from cosmetics, including our dear methylene chloride. No, I shouldn't say dear. We have to distance ourselves from methylene chloride. It's not safe for us. In the US, however, the FDA, that's the Food and Drug Administration, they're the body that regulates, I believe, food and cosmetic products. They are significantly weaker when it comes to enforcement. The FDA does not have the authority to approve hair dye ingredients before they actually hit the market. That being said, they are trying to make changes. The FDA recently passed what we call the Modernization of Cosmetics Regulation Act. And this agency is still operating on a reactive honor system. To my knowledge, the FDA has banned or restricted only about 11 ingredients. What does this mean for Americans? So in America, we're held to a much lower safety standard than people in Europe. In the US, a product is essentially innocent until proven guilty, while in the EU, it must be proven safe before use. This episode has been focusing on Consumer Reports findings, mainly highlighting methylene chloride. But it's not just methylene chloride that's a problem here. When it comes to hair dyes, methylene chloride is not the only chemical we should be worried about. There are other what we would call frequent flyers in the world of toxic hair dye. The first one being PPD. So it is p-Phenylenediamine. This is the primary allergen in hair dye. Research actually shows that it causes 75% of hair dye allergic reactions. It can also lead to severe dermatitis and even chemical burns. Another problematic ingredient is what we call resorcinol. This chemical is known as an endocrine disruptor. So it can interfere with your thyroid functions and also affect reproductive hormones. Another problematic ingredient, which I'm sure you've probably heard of if you're a science student or you're a person that loves to dye your hair, is ammonia, right? It sounds all gentle and whatnot, but ammonia is used to open the hair cuticles. That being said, inhaling ammonia vapors can actually cause respiratory irritation and long-term lung damage. So these are the other ingredients that are usually in hair dyes, and they're not that good for us. So if you love coloring your hair and you've used any of these dyes in the past, please don't lose hope, right? The purpose of talking about this finding is not to make you feel sad or feel like you can't color your hair anymore. Guys, we're in 2026. There are options. There are safer alternatives and measures you can take to put some splash and, color in your hair. So the first thing I'm going to talk about are the natural alternatives. Think about henna and indigo. If you want to avoid chemicals entirely, you can look to nature. We have pure henna, which bonds with the hair's keratin to provide rich red tones. And when you combine henna with indigo, you can actually achieve deep browns or black hues for your hair. These plant-based dyes They do nourish the scalp, interestingly. I didn't know that. As I was searching, I found out that people use it on their scalp. And they also strengthen the hair. If you're opting for henna or indigo, just make sure you're using the body art quality versions. They're the ones that have not been mixed with any metallic salts, which can interfere with their ability to make your hair pop. Next, consider going 50-50, aka trying out semi-permanent dyes. So there's an option to also shift from using permanent dyes. There are what we call semi-permanent and demi-permanent formulas that don't penetrate as deeply into the hair shaft. They generally lack the most volatile solvents like methylene chloride, and they use very low concentrations of chemicals like peroxide. Importantly, prioritize ventilation. If you would still love to use the conventional permanent dyes, please avoid doing it in a closed room. Always keep the door open and use a fan. You need to keep the concentration of the VOC gases as low as possible to protect your lungs. Another important thing to do is ingredient audits. Yes, ingredient audits. As I'm saying it, it sounds like it's a lot, especially when you look at ingredient labels that have about 30 ingredients listed there. But trust me, these days we have to be more informed as we're buying products. So before you buy a product, you can scan the barcode. There are different apps that help you assess, right, what the ingredients are, what they do to the body, how safe they are. Look for and avoid ingredients like dichloromethane, resorcinol, and PPD. And I think this is important. We really need to start changing how we shop for things. If a product does not list its full ingredients, do not put it on your head. Simple. Lastly, I've highlighted that you should focus on ventilation. This should not just be at home. If you go to the salon, you should also look around you. Try to get a sense for whether the salon has like an air filtration system. And if a salon smells like a chemical factory, that's just a sign that the air is not safe. And if you're going to dye your hair there, or you see people dyeing their hair, that's a red flag, yo. The truth is, our hair is an extension of our health. It is a reflection of how you treat your body. What you expose your hair to shouldn't threaten your well-being. It's that simple. That's all I have for today's episode. Check out the show notes for links to the studies highlighted in this episode, including the consumer report findings. And if you have any questions, thoughts, suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Send an email to utkinhair@gmail.com. DM us on Instagram at UTKPodcast. And if you're ready to switch to natural and intentional hair care, check out our science-backed formulas at www.eidaranaturals.com. Eidara is spelled as EYIDARA. Naturals. NATURALS. One more thing. Please rate us and continue to share our podcast with others. Thank you. I'm still your host, Ganiat. Catch you on the next episode of Unraveling the Knots.